Good afternoon all. Welcome to all faculty members and my dear students. We are here for the session on Indian Constitution on the topic Evolution of Human Rights. It's my privilege to welcome our today's guest, Professor Meena DR, Director Dr. Aruna Devskar, Coordinator Dr. Maithari Arjunwadkar, IQAC Coordinator Dr. Mandakini Bosle. Now, I would like to introduce Professor Veena ma'am without taking much time. Ma'am is serving as Universal Human Value Coordinator and NEP Coordinator at institute level. She has completed course on Human Rights Law from National Law School of India, University, Bangalore. She has 27 plus years of experience in teaching, served as a head of department. Her research interests are heterocyclic components. Madam has published many papers, national and international journals. Appointed by Visvesvaraya Technological University as a nominee for the Board of Studies in Chemistry, worked as a BOE and BOS member of Bangalore Institute of Technology. She actively participated and involved as a resource person in many activities. Madam has translated chemistry course material from English to Kannada and prepared English subtitles for around 50 videos of Kannada on organic farming. Madam also writes short notes, short stories in Kannada related to social issues, which are also published. Thank you. I would like to request our director, madam, to do virtual salutation.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for accepting our invitation.
Thank you
Now,
so much.
I'd like to hand over the session to Meena, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, please.
Yes, ma'am. I'll share my this one, ma'am. PPTs slides. Very good afternoon to all the participants there, and I would submit my special thanks to Dr. Aruna madam, who have given me an opportunity, the director, and also Professor Bharati madam, and all the coordinator of this event, and also the IQAC coordinator, sir. Thank you all for giving me an opportunity, and I'm very blessed to be the resource person for this university, because after learning all the invitations, I could find that it is affiliated to, it belongs to Savitribai Phule University. Yes, no, madam? Madam? Hello?
So, yes, ma'am, we are affiliated to Savitribai Phule Pune University, ma'am.
University. I am blessed to speak in that university because if we can look at the post-independence and the past independence developments, whatever the contribution by the very renowned and very respectful women, Savitribai Phule, is to be remembered forever. She was the one who could promote the women education in our India. And we speak of all freedom today, we speak of all liberty today. Those were the days we were not allowed to go to this and have our education. And she has sacrificed her whole life for the sake of the women's education. Women's education is nothing but bringing equality and gender equality in the society. And with all that, she is always recognized and identified in our India as the mother of alphabets. That is, the mother of alphabets means Akshar Ki Ma, or whatever it is, if I'm translating properly in Hindi. So I'm very glad to be the speaker for that university. So today we shall go with the topic. So I'm covering the small portion of Indian Constitution. I may not take up the whole or the detailed part of it. In that, I'll be taking up the evolution of human rights. What are these human rights? How it got evolved? Then later we shall see. 1 minute, ma'am. move the slide. 1 minute, please.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Ma'am, is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. It's
Okay, okay. So now we are going to understand today, first, what are the importance of human rights and what actually we need the human rights for and what is the significance of it. And later, how slowly it got evolved both in the global society and also in our Indian society, and later how it got inculcated in our constitution. Okay, so first let me understand, let us know what human rights are. Human rights are the basic rights and freedom every human being has to enjoy. So there should be always the rights which should be there for every human being from the womb to tomb. The day we start in a mother womb till we go to the tomb, unless if we are not defined with the human rights or the rights that we need to live, it will be very chaotic to make a livelihood in the society. What does this human right relate to? This mainly relates to the life, liberty, equality, and dignity of the individual. It's not the intention of every human being to have their life or livelihood just like that. We should have a dignity life, dignity livelihood. And how all these can happen? All these can happen only if it is guaranteed by our constitution, or it should also be taken care by the international covenants. What are international covenants? It is something, a authenticated treaty between the different countries in the world, and it should be must and should be enforceable by the courts of that particular country. We have so much to speak. We have so much in our constitution. If it does not come into practice by enforced by the courts of that particular country, again, the existence of rights for the human being at the full strength is not possible. Now, when we look at this 20th century is known to be the century of human rights. Why it is known to be the century of human rights? Even though there is a lot of agitation going on from centuries together, so it is because this is where the whole world witnessed the massive violation. What was that massive violation which happened? The massive problem here. Madam, some problem with this one moment of the PPT, please.
yes, ma'am. Problem with the slide?
Not able to
I'm
move
just
the
trying.
slide. I was not able to move the slide, that's all. Harshita.
Will you share it once again, ma'am?
Madam?
Ma'am, will you please share it once again? Close it and open it. Yes,
Now
ma'am.
it's okay. It's okay. It's coming. It's okay. It's okay, ma'am. So now, as I said earlier, 1 minute. It is movable, madam. No problem. So this 20th century, which is identified as the century of human rights, is not that because the human rights got evolved. No, it was identified for the massive violation. What was that massive violation which happened? We shall see. See, that is due to the two world wars which took place in our world. And that whatever the massive violation in the humanity happened, that gave a recognition for the cry for the humanity. That is why the 20th century is identified as the cry for human rights or the cry for humanity. So nowadays, we speak of humanity and human rights as though it is there in our terms, and it has become the basic vocabulary. Whenever we speak, whenever we need to apply in our daily day-to-day life, we just take the human rights granted. It has become the basic vocabulary. But it has gone through a very tragic journey that we are going to look at now. So whenever something happens, tyranny or the operation tyranny and operation means it is something when the country is imposing us the strict rules, when the laws of the country is making some discrimination on us, we speak of the human rights now. It has become a common talk in all of us. So these human rights did not come just like that as a right or as a law. It has come after a lot of philosophical debates of several centuries. So what is the main intention? Why was that so much of agitation in order to get this installed? It is because the main purpose of the concept of human right is to bring the basic requirement in the society, the basic requirement which makes every human being to lead a minimally good life, not that a life with all luxury and pleasure and with all that is benefits, a minimally good life, it was necessary. So now, whatever the human rights we speak now, this originally started from the legal and political developments which has taken worldwide. If we are to look into some of the legal documents and the political documents which has come worldwide, so we always remember the Magna Carta, the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and the citizen, and also the United States Bill of Rights. So all these three I'm going to discuss in detail also later. So these rights played a very important role in the political, not only the philosophical, but also the social thoughts. So because it played such an important role in the social thoughts also, it gave rise to a lot of leading movements. It went to a lot of movements. Movements means where you put a cry of, this is the cry of us for the law to be made. That is what we say, the movements. Then we started demanding the freedom for consciousness. Not we, some many generations back it has happened. Then it also meant for the religious toleration, because in a country like India or in a globe where lot of race are there, where lot of religion are there, if it does not have or possess the religious toleration, then how does the humanity comes between us? Then the rights of men, particularly the gender equality, was the one which had to be established in order to restore the human rights. So the rights for women. So we know that women, as I said, right from the educational system also, how far we were. So all that is brought into the stream of the society only because of these agitations. Later, on top of all these, the restoration of the human right was possible only by elimination of the slavery and the extension of the franchise. Franchise means where every citizen of that particular country or that particular land gets the power of voting. So as I said earlier, this 20th century, which has witnessed a threat for the existence of human beings. There was no guarantee a person born will exist. It was such a chaotic order which was taken in the society. So even in spite of that, so there was the cry for the humanity which was identified. So as I mentioned earlier, this threat mainly happened in the 20th century because of the two world wars, which accounted for millions of deaths and war-related problems. So that gave a lot of diseases, poverty, siege. Siege means it is where many people who have supported the other party or involved in the whatever we say the war were kept for a long time. The home prisons, the village prisons, many a times the place where they were staying, that particular village or town was kept away from the world for longs and longs of years. So all these trouble the 20th century has created, but still always witnesses for the cry of humanity also. So this is how the cry for the humanity, after understanding the threat for the human beings, led to the concern of human beings, which evolved the UDHR. What is this UDHR? UDHR means Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the most important document which has come up in the 20th century. Documentation, this is the documentation for the human rights. So it does not mean that the 20th century has caused only the Renaissance. We are going to look at, when you look at the evolution of these human rights, we are also going to understand how this has happened. Let us see later. So this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was accepted by the United Nations Assembly on December 10, 1948, almost 70 years and odd. So now the doctrinal concept of those human rights has played a vital role in the society of the whole globe. So in turn, the society of every land that we are accepting virtually by every country in the globe. The human rights, which are considered to be the fundamental and basic to the very existence of human being. So it does not mean that only the human beings live in that territory needs it or this race need it. No, it is the right of the entire community. The human rights. So how is the adoption of human rights in the rules and regulations or in the laws or in the constitution of a country will become the yardstick to examine how the treatment is for the people of that country. By understanding the human rights documents which are inculcated in the laws of that country or the constitution of that country, we can understand what is the kind of treatment by that nation to the people. So when we speak of this evolvement of the human rights, this global with the human rights of first generation, which meant the rights with respect to the civil and political rights. You know what the civil and political rights are. So it is where the people at least have a minimal life right to make a living. So they will be recognized as the citizen of that particular land. They have the voting power, all that comes here. Next comes the next generation of the evolvement of the human right, which has happened. So whatever I'm speaking, the first generation, second generation, or the third and fourth generation has not happened in 10 years, 100 years. No, centuries together, right from BCs to the existing system now. Next comes the human rights evolvement, which has happened. We recognize this or identify this as the second generation, which has happened in the areas of economic, social, and the cultural rights. We know that if the religious rights, the cultural rights are not respected by the law of the country, then what lot of disorder can take up. We have seen already in case of Hitler, the Nazism and Jewism, how it led to lots and lots, millions of people in the Holocaust. So next coming to the human rights of third generation, there is a bit modification here. We have climbed many steps in the journey of human rights. Here it takes us to the solidarity rights, which is nothing but the collective rights. What are these solidarity rights? Solidarity rights means it is something, the right which brings together. It is the right of togetherness where the society which was getting executed under either an emperor or a sovereign or some government had a chance of getting together also, where lot of cooperative societies, so many that is owning the company which was run, owning the property, all that came. Then comes the human rights, which is recognized to be in the fourth generation. It is called subjective right. Now, when you can look at these children, what you can observe here is all these three were almost the collective rights. When you come to the fourth one, this is considered to be the subjective right. Subjective right means depending upon the situation, depending upon the torture or the trouble happened with an individual. So the individual concern started in the fourth generation, and that is why we call it as subjective rights. So these are the 4 different levels how it has evolved. But look at children, one we have to remember always is Monizer Rhein-Kezin, who won the Nobel Prize in 1968 for the peace, is a very remarkable person whom we have to remember forever throughout our lifetime and as long as this earth planet exists. He is considered to be the father of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and he was born on October 5th, 1887. Why? Why the message of him to the world is so much remarkable. It is not that he was involved in the draft committee of preparing the document for Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Not alone that. There was a very big committee who were involved in that. But still, why the Kissing, the great person Kissing, was awarded with the Nobel Prize in 1968? Because you look at the tragedy of his life, children. He himself was forged in suffering. He was badly injured in the First World War, and look at the irony in his fate. He had lost 26 members of his family in the Nazi Holocaust. So even in spite of that, his humanity was sustained. His humanity in his heart was restored, and he dedicated all his life in giving proper justice, he being the French Jewish jurist, and he was also the law professor and judge. You could remember, if you can Google, all children can know what was the Nazi Holocaust, and before they were thrown into the gas chambers or whatever it is, they were also labored. So he lost 26 members of his family, but his message to humanity is very much remarkable, and the vibration he has created in the society of human beings is still getting reverberated. Children, you just have a chance of looking at some of the laws under Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The first law, the Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights itself, put you in lot of emotion, for which so sustaining and also restoring the humanity, he being in a better chair, so could take care of the humanity. And that is how he was awarded the Nobel Prize for the peace. He was almost around 80 years, if you can calculate. And what was going on in our country? It was the Sapro Committee of 1945 that subsequently stressed the need for a written code of fundamental rights. And fundamental right is nothing but the human rights. You're going to soon see that in the Constituent Assembly, because you should be knowing, children, when we got the independence in 1947, we did not get the independence just at the day of the August, that is 1947 was not our day to have the independence alone. It was the journey where lot of preparations were taking place, and there were already some committees which were appointed to draft the laws and rules, because ours was an undivided Hindustan at that time. So unless the laws and rules there, we would not have been able to survive from the whatever the English or the Britain government. So in that view, there were a lot of committees framed. So one such was the committee to frame the constitution. To that committee, the Sapru committee was the one which gave the request or gave a suggestion to include these fundamental rights, nothing but the human rights. These were the one which raised a forceful demand for the inclusion of human rights in the constitution. And that was the time, because of all these happened, that was the time for us where we were getting freed from the Britain government. So we signed for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. India was also the country, it was a signatory to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Why I need to say is, you would be aware of a fact that whatever takes place at the global level, that is at the level of United Nations where almost 193 countries have participated there, unless a country by self joins that with a signatory, what we call that process as ratification process. Then there will be no binding for that particular country to apply all this. So it is very necessary for every country under United Nations to get ratified to enjoy these or to implement this. Otherwise, it stays out. And what happens when we are not getting ratified and when we are not becoming the signatory for these things which are the fundamental cry of a human being? So how will be our that is reflection in the global level? So all that care has to be taken. Okay, what are the most important human right documents which has come up in the 20th century? It is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I'm going to speak of it. Next, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Next comes the Charter of the United Nations. Next comes the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Political Rights. Next comes the International Bill of Human Rights. And finally, the Article 10 of the European Convention, where are almost 56 countries involved in that. We shall see one by one. You please look here. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it came in 1948 on the 10th December, and this is executed at Paris. So I'm going to speak in detail of this Universal Declaration of Human Rights later. So before this was the Charter of the United Nations, where it speaks of the social, that is the political and civil rights. So this was signed on 26 June 1945 and effective from 24th October. So it is there in almost all these languages: Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, Spanish, and this location is in California. Then what is this United Nations General Assembly means? Because we say that the important document of the 20th century on the universal human rights is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and that is coming to a documentation process only after it is adopted and accepted by the United Nations General Assembly. What is this United Nations General Assembly? You're all PG students. Hope you all know this, but still I will repeat this. United Nations General Assembly is the United Nation, is the world's largest intergovernmental organization which executes between the countries, and there are 193 countries which are ratified for this. Okay, now let's come to the next important document, that is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So this is where the rights for the human being starts from his right to life, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. Assembly means so you can also make an association of your own to fight for the good cause. So all these came, and also the electoral rights, what we call as the right of franchise. All these came in, that was signed in 1966, but however, it came in 1976. But look at the signatories are only 74. That means when it came into effect in 1976, the signatories were only 74 countries. Means you can imagine how slowly we were moving towards definition of the rights of the human being in our global society. Okay. Next comes the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. So here the signatories are 71, and this came effective in 1976, and the location, the headquarters in New York. So this is also translated to many languages. Why I speak of the languages here, children? Because the very important document of the 20th century, that is Universal Declaration of Human Rights, has been translated to 541 languages. That is where you understand the divinity of the document. Why it is called as a strong document even today is because of the divinity of it getting translated to 541 languages. Now, what is this? International Bill of Human Rights means what? This was again the cry or the order from the United Nations, where every country has the responsibility of respecting the rights which is embedded or which is inculcated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by ratifying them. By ratifying means, I said, unless the country becomes a signatory to any world document or any United Nations document, it is not considered ratified. So we have to get first ourselves ratified. Our country has to get ratified, then everything follows. Then the Article 10 of European Convention, which is considered to be the most important development in the recognition of the rights for human being, that is the freedom of expression. So here, this was again, convention was open for signature on 4th November 1915 Rome, and it was ratified and it came into action on 1953. And this is from the European Council. That is why 46 countries have joined it. Okay, when all these things were happening in our global society, that put a strong requirement on the human rights, not the human rights which were pertinent for a particular area, particular race, or particular country. We were in urge of having the universal human rights. Whatever the human rights we have, that had to be with the definition of universal human rights. So the voice for these human rights first started in Greek and Rome globally, and due to the awareness created by the Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Socrates was a person from 470 to 399 BC, and Plato from 428 to 348, and Aristotle 384 to 322. Aristotle's time was something almost the time where the great emperor, the Samrat Ashoka, was ruling our country. Okay, so now if you can look up, do you understand? Children, I'm speaking in BCs now, that is before the Christ time age here. Do you understand? I start from the higher number 470 BC, he was born there, and he died on 390. I think you understand this, because 2000, can I have yes or no? Can I receive yes or no? Okay. So how, madam, am I audible, madam?
Yes, ma'am. But students are muted, ma'am. They don't have control. That is
Okay,
why
madam. Okay,
they are
madam.
unable to speak.
Okay,
But they can, yes,
yes.
students, you can ask the questions and as well as answer in the chat box. Chat box is open for all.
Okay,
Thank you,
madam.
ma'am.
Okay. So now, if you can remember, how is the time age of our system is measured? All of us follow the Christian calendar. So the 0th year is the birth of the Jesus Christ. And now we have traveled to the time of 2023 now. And when you go back, the count starts in the reverse direction. That is why the beginning starts with a lower number and the ending goes with a higher number. That clarification is enough for our children. Okay. Now look here, the awareness created by the Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, so was the one which raised the voice for human rights. So Roman civilization reveals the fact that why there was the voice for the human rights by these great people. It is because the Roman civilization witnesses the fact that so there were more than 1 lakh human beings, that is, who were considered as slaves, were sold like materials at that time. Then you can imagine how would be their situation, more worse than an animal. So animal would have been little free in the forest, and for other things it would have been brought and cut off. But remember, these human beings, they have to run their livelihood, the whole livelihood, like slaves who were there, who were sold like materials at that time. So this was the time. So the awareness by the Socrates, Pluto, and you would know that this Socrates, Pluto, they also did not meet the proper death in their lifetime. They had to sacrifice their life. So the emperor ruling, the sovereign ruling that country were not happy with their messages, and they were given very higher punishment, even in their death also. Look at these children. This awareness opened them. These incidences which are taking place at that time opened their heart, and the human beings which were sold like slaves were hurted them, and that awareness somehow percolated in the society. So later what happened? Left off all the growth which has happened in all these years. I've directly come to the 13th century because this was the first document, human rights document, which came in the history of the whole world, because there might be many preachings which would have happened. There would be many people who have sacrificed like Socrates, Pluto, or whoever it is, or in our country also. In the 12th century, if you can take our land, Karnataka, or wherever it is, lot of agitation was going on for the religious barriers, race barriers, and slavery system. But all that happened only through the sayings and the preachings, which did not become a document. So anything can become a document if and only if it comes out from an authenticated power. So that is why the 13th century, that is in 1215, King John of England brought a document called Magna Carta. Magna Carta is an unforgettable document in the history of all human beings. Magna Carta is to be worshipped by all of us, and that was the first document on the human right which protected the human right. And also, why all this happened? It all happened only because the people revolted at that time. And this is where the people of England could own the property and inherit the property. Look here, children, till the 13th century, there in the European country, forget about our India. So what was, the people could not inherit the property they have. The people could not own the property, what they earned through their hard working or hardship. But that power came only in the 13th century. That is why the Magna Carta is considered to be an important document in the history of human rights. You can look this where the King John of England signing that document, children. Okay. Then comes to the next 16th century. Here the John Locke proposes that whatever the natural rights means whatever the society accepts. But many a times what the society accepts can't also become a right, because you can take in our own country, the society, what it was accepted in terms that in case of women only, we were not let out, we were not given the chance for education, so many things. So you can't consider the social requirement as the right also, but still the natural right, that is instinct of every human being, he called it as the human right. So then again, people of the England protested against the ruler in 1688. Then the England Parliament brings the Bill of Rights. Look here, children, it is the England Parliament. So one more important document comes to the England Parliament in 1689, and it is identified as Bill of Rights. And this was the first document protecting human rights in the Parliament. Next, coming to the 18th century, it was a time where America was ruled by England. So there the writings of John Locke, Rousseau, Montesquieu influenced the American people for their rights, and they started protesting against the England, and finally American got independence in 1770. So look here, why after that, on 15th December 1799, American Parliament made an amendment. It introduced an amendment. Amendment means it is the correction on their constitution that human rights were included there. Later, the movement also propagated in the France. In 1789, the human rights were taken care. So all these led to the development of an important document in the society of humanity, that is the Universal Human Rights, what we call as the UDHR. Look here, there was so much urge for the human rights, not in a specified area, it is the universally requirement. In the 20th century, the whole world witnessed for millions of deaths and war-related problems like diseases and other things. The First World War, which commenced on 28 July 1914, ended in November 1918. That happened between the Central Power and Allied Power. That's okay. So there 15 to 20 million deaths were witnessed. So million means it is 6 zeros after these numericals, children. See, look at the proximity of the numerical statistics given here. It says that 15 to 22, such a lot of probable approximation here. And this is what was something documented. You imagine which was not documented. To establish the harmony in human beings, then the Human Rights League of Nations came into existence. But still, the Human Rights League of Nations, after looking all the millions of deaths here, still could not control the irony on the existence of humanity. Then again, the Second World War started. That is started in 1st September, went on from 1939 to 1945. Look at here, the victims were 70 to 80 millions. What was this population at that time? In 1940, when the Second World War was going on, the world population, it was the 3% of world population smashed. So 50 to 56 million directly by the death, that is by war, and 19 to 28 million war-related diseases and family sufferings. Family suffering, as I said you, that is the food problem, medicinal problem, and also the people who are involved, because at that time the country was forcing their citizenship to participate in the war. They had to directly, compulsorily take participation in the war, and they were kept in siege. Siege means what you say, it is something like a prison. Then the Roosevelt from America, Stalin from Russia, Churchill from England played a very major role in establishing this United Nations. The United Nations is an international organization that was founded in 1945 after the Second World War by 51 countries. So this has a commitment to maintain the international peace and security. And also it takes care of the social progress and better living standards and human rights. Okay, then what happened? These United Nations gave rise to the UDHR, that is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That was an international document on rights and freedom of human beings, which was adopted by United Nations General Assembly. I said you, look at this. This is the document which was translated by 531 languages, means you can imagine what was the requirement of the humanity at that time in the globe. So later, the Human Rights Council, which was established in 2006, now meets in Geneva. However, the protection and implementation by the individual country is possible if and only if it is the law of the country. There is no meaning any changes which is taking place in United Nations or Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but it has to be brought into the law of the country. When the human rights becomes a binding to the law of the nation, then only it can be strictly followed. So that has to happen. Look here, children, what all was happening here, how it gave rise to the inculcation of human rights in our constitution is the next part of our discussion. I'll be taking another 10 minutes. I'll finish fast. So this creates the need for respecting the rights of each other. Human right, look here children, is not the right of we alone, me alone, you alone. It's the right of other. So first we have to respect the right of each other. When that comes, automatically everything comes. Look here, the United Nations Commission on Human Rights was established in 1946. The main intention was to make a network between the international network between the countries to protect our fundamental rights and freedoms. And this commission would meet always at Geneva in the Switzerland. Later, what happened? So this Human Rights Council came up. This was established in 2006. So this was replaced. It replaced the United Nations Commission on Human Rights. Some modifications have taken here. So the National Human Rights Commission of our India is a statutory public body which is constituted on 12th October, located at New Delhi. Do you understand the difference? That is, what is statutory public body? That means whatever may be in our constitution, it should also be promoted by our assembly, legislative assembly. So that we call it as statutory bodies. Okay, this is the cover page of the Constitution of India. This is where they say for what purpose and when was this constitution adopted. Look here, this is all known for you, but I'll spend some 3 minutes upon this. It was adopted by the Constituent Assembly of India on 26 November 1949, what we call as the Constitution Day. Later, it was effective on 26 January 1950. Hope all our children remember when they celebrate the Republic Day in your college. If not in college, if you stay home, taking that as a holiday, you remember at least for why it is declared holiday and why you are in the house. Okay, the Indian Constitution had 395 articles, 22 parts, and 8 schedules when the commencement of the year 1940-50. But now it has been expanded depending upon the changes and the requirement of the society. It is 470 articles, 25 parts, and 12 schedules and 5 appendices. And there are 104 amendments. What are these? We'll learn. So article means it is a legal rule. 470 articles are the legal rules that can be set by a country under statute. That means the legislative assembly has to promote it. Then what are schedules? Schedules are the one which gives even more broader meaning of these articles and helps us understanding them. Okay, the appendices is also the same here. And what is amendment? See, look here, what has been as an article long ago, some 70 years back, will not help us now. There are many changes taking place with the livelihood of every human being, and the same way the rules, laws also has to be updated. You can imagine children, when the constitution was made, where was the cyber crime? Now the technology has improved laws. I'm somewhere here in Karnataka, you're somewhere in some part of Maharashtra, both of us are connected. We're connected so beautifully, 100% connected. So when so many things are getting updated, is not that our constitution should also get updated? Definitely. That is why there are some corrections made or some that is changes made. We call them as amendment. This is the change or addition. This usually to whatever the existing document, there will be some change and the addition made. Look here, children, the parts and the subject, when you look at, I don't know whether you need it or what, I'll just go fast. It is divided into part 1. I've taken up to part 22 here. So the union and its territories, where you define the territories of a country, comes between the article 1 and 4. About the citizenship, it is in the article 5 to 11. Fundamental rights, most important discussion of today is 12 to 35. Then comes the directive principles. I think you should be knowing the difference between the fundamental right and directive principles. Fundamental right is also called the constitutional right. You can also find a constitutional remedy for that under the article 32, whereas the directive principles of the state policy depends upon the resource of the country. You can imagine, I can just give you an example. If you can remember the right to education, look here children, India with such a large geographical condition, high population, a lot of resourcefulness, and we say that we are the IT people controlling most of the other countries abroad, but the right to education is a fundamental right, was adopted and came as a fundamental right only in 2006. And you can imagine where we are. It is because the country says that the resource of the country is not possible, not sufficient. So that is what we learn under directive principles of state policy. Then comes when there are rights, should not the citizen have the responsibility of duties also? It is the fundamental duties. Next, the union, which has from 50 to 151 article, then about the states, 150 to 237, and it goes on like this. Madam, do you want me to take all these?
No, Neema. No, no need, madam.
Okay. I just
This
okay.
because
So
it is
now
not
it goes
part
like
of the
this
syllabus.
till part 2, till part 22. This is how it has gone. So some of the articles what I mention here at the right side are the one which specify the type of the subject or which specify the type of execution they are getting done in our constitution. Now look here, children. Let me come to the most important, the core part of this talk, that is the fundamental right. Why do we say the fundamental right of our constitution is very important? How am I correlating this to the human right? Look here, it was a time when when the draft for the constitution was taking place, it was a time where the UDHR was evolving, universal declaration of the human right, what you call as a Amruta Bindu for the whole humankind was evolving. That was the time where we were framing our constitution also. So that had a direct effect on our this one, framing of a constitution. And what all you see in the fundamental right, children, they are nothing but the human rights. I'll just look here. What can be the most required fundamental right for every human being? Right to equality. We all should have the equal living here. That is there in Article 14 and 18, which comes under fundamental right. Next come to right to freedom. So whatever we have, either the freedom of expression, freedom of execution, freedom of life, if you do, freedom should be again, subjected to the territorial sometimes and also the societal, but that is covered in Articles 19 to 22, which comes in the fundamental right. Then the right against the exploitation, which comes the Articles 23 to 24. Then right to freedom, that is religion, because ours is a very vast geographical country which has been ruled by many different rulers from different parts of the country. You can call it as ruled or invaded, whatever it is, but still their race and all. So that also has to be respected. Unless we have the freedom of religion, again, we are constrained. So that is given in Articles 25 to 28. Cultural and educational right. Okay, so this is there in the Articles 29 to 30. And on top of all these is the right to constitutional remedies, which comes in the Article 32 to 35. So look here. So if these fundamental rights, which are nothing but called in the other name as human rights, are strictly implemented by the law of country, it goes on getting a marvelous magic in the society. See, where will all the violences usually start in our system? It begins right from our domestic level only. So the domestic violences can be taken care if the human rights are implemented very strictly by the law of our country. Look here, the human trafficking. Have you heard of human trafficking? Human trafficking means just like the sale of the human beings, where they're for the labor or they can for the sexual harassment. So this is what we call the human trafficking. It may not happen as we say something like the chain. I'm putting an image over here reflecting that human trafficking through the chain. That would not happen, but that would happen in smoother words. still in the society happening, that I need not have to mention, because you are all the PG students, you know how the human trafficking in the field of the labor and sexual harassment is going on. Then comes the slavery, release from the slavery. So that is again well mentioned in the Article 4. Then labor system abolition, which has also come up in 1970, that is taken care. And whatever we earn, whatever the hardship we put, we have to be paid properly. Otherwise, how do we make the living? So the minimum wage law or the minimum wage act, all that. And now the citizens of India are nothing but that who can speak and who can strongly stand. It is the small children also who are emerging, who are going to be the one who are the pillars of our country. If the child is not nourished, if the child is put under labor, if then child undergoes malnourishment. Look at the other right image of this age female, that is the image of the female child. So the female child are more prone to the damages during their childhood days, not because of the nourishment and labor problem. It is because of the sexual harassment. So if all these are not taken care, so if it is not strictly implemented, the fundamental right, which is nothing but the human right, there is no way the land can be happy. So we have to break the silence, see that our fundamental right be established. So all these can be definitely decreased to some considerable amount when the human rights, which happens to be the fundamental right in our constitution, has to be strictly implemented by the law of our land. So look here, when something violation in the fundamental right happens, every individual has the power to move to the Supreme Court to get his grievances satisfied, to get his fundamental rights protected under the Article 32. If he is to move for the High Court of that particular state, he can refer the article of 226 and he can just file a suit with this help. So it is the awareness also very much required here. These are the references I've taken. So look here, children, I'm going to finish this talk here. So my intention is whatever the human rights, the evolvement of the human rights, you have seen how this has happened right from centuries. It has not happened only by documents. It has happened by the philosophical debates and philosophical deliberations, later went on to the document, and now we are safe. Okay, so if this has created an awareness in you, so that awareness which says that not that we need to have the right of us, you respect the right of others also, because you are the one who will be the pillar to our nation. You are the one who are going to define our society. Definitely, if this talk can create some ray of hope and ray of light, that will cause the magic in society. Thank you, children. Thank you so much. Thank you, madam.
Definitely, madam. Our students will definitely are the ray of hope and light. They are the pillars uh, of next generation. Thank you, ma'am. Students from audience side, if you have any queries, questions, you can raise your hand or you can post your question in the chat box also. So, ma'am is with us and you can ask the questions.
They are well exposed to the awareness and constitution because they are all PG students, so they know.
But it is a need of an hour, ma'am.
Thank you, madam.
Definitely, you have explained it so beautifully, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
We'll just take one or two questions if at all they have, ma'am. I'm waiting for the post.
Yes, ma'am.
Students,
Please.
any post is there? Please, any questions, you can post it now.
Is it posted? Can you read the chat, ma'am? Because I can't open the window here. If the questions are posted, please read the chat, ma'am.
Sure, ma'am. Once I get the post, definitely I'll pass it to you, ma'am. Till now, there are no posts, ma'am.
Okay.
You can raise your hands, children.
So no doubt for them?
I think there are no doubts, ma'am.
Okay.
Uh, then shall we close the session, ma'am, now? I'd like
Thank
to
you.
give a word of thanks for you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your such a wonderful session. On behalf of Progressive Education Society's Modern Institute of Business Studies and the our director, Dr. Aruna Deoskar Madam, coordinator, Dr. Maithili Arjunwadkar Madam, and IQSC coordinator, Dr. Mandakini Bosle Madam, I would like to thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful session, ma'am. Thank
Oh,
you so
thank you.
much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you. I also thank and express my sincere gratitude for giving me an opportunity and for the encouragement given by our institution. And on top of all that, I'm the person from chemistry, and all this could happen only because from the professors of the law university where I completed that human rights law. That was a magical teaching, really. I enjoyed it. And I also encourage students to take up some multidisciplinary courses like this.
yes, ma'am. It's actually under NEP 2020 also, that also is already started. Implementation is also started, and
Oh,
students are doing multidisciplinary courses these days.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, happy to see you, ma'am.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you so
yes.
much. Thank you. Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
For students, there is one declaration. Attendance link is already forwarded in the chat box. You can give your attendance. Shall we close the session, ma'am?
Sure, ma'am. Sure, madam. Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
ma'am.
much, madam. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you
madam.
so much. And herewith, I declare the session is over. Ma'am, if you want, you can leave, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.